who will talk more about the decade and also the importance of evaluation and monitoring the progress under the decade, as well as some information on, how does this actually work and how can you get help if you are the national focal point in your country that will be responsible for completing this questionnaire. Before we get into the more lengthier presentations, I would like to give the floor to our fantastic chair of the Regional Steering Group for CRVS in Asia and the Pacific, Treta Sharma. Treta is the Administrator General in the Ministry of Justice in Fiji, which basically means she oversees civil registration in Fiji. Before that, she was the Register of Titles, so she also has experience with registration of other types of events. And she's educated as a lawyer. I am extremely pleased that Treta will be opening this Stats Cafe. Fiji and Treta has been an amazing chair for the Regional Steering Group for many years now, and they've always shown great leadership in the region broader, in the Pacific, and also at the national level, where we've seen very significant improvements to the CRVS system in Fiji. So it is very appropriate that I give the floor to Treta to open the Stats Cafe. Over to you, Treta.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Regional Steering Group members, development partners, panelists, ladies and gentlemen, as the chair of the Regional Steering Group, it is my pleasure to deliver opening remarks during the Stats Cafe for the launch of the questionnaire for the 2024 review of the Asia and the Pacific CRVS Decade 2015 to 2024. The Regional Steering Group has the responsibility to guide the organization of the review of the CRVS Decade and Third Ministerial Conference in June 2025. We can ensure that the strong commitment shown by our countries throughout the Asia-Pacific CRVS Decade is acknowledged and reinforced going forward. As you all know, the Ministerial Declaration had decided on the CRVS Decade, which has come to an end this year. We all must discuss, reflect on, and think about the next steps on the CRVS extension. In a nutshell, let me explain how the decade was initiated. Governments across Asia and the Pacific region convened in Bangkok, Thailand in November 2014 for the first ministerial conference on civil registration and vital statistics for Asia and the Pacific. Following the conference, ministers from the region unanimously proclaimed the Asia and the Pacific CRVS Decade, which was 2015 to 2024. The CRVS Decade has become an embodiment of government's commitments towards universal civil registration, good governance, and the realization of individual rights to be recognized everywhere as a person before the law. Ministers at the 2014 Ministerial Conference also endorsed the Regional Action Framework. Is everyone okay?
Yeah, I think it's okay now.
Sorry, Treta, I think you were
I think
muted
you're
by default. Could you unmute? Sorry. Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
Ministers at the 2014 Ministerial Conference also endorsed the Regional Action Framework on civil registration and vital statistics in Asia and the Pacific to guide countries towards achieving the shared vision. Since the inauguration of the Asia and the Pacific CRVS Decade, countries in the region have made significant progress in implementing the Regional Action Framework and improving their national CRVS system. Members of the Regional Steering Group for CRVS in Asia and the Pacific discussed the future of the decade in more detail at the 2023 meeting and recommended an extension to the CRVS Decade to align with the 2030 agenda as well as an increased focus on inclusivity and resilience in CRVS to realize the shared vision of universal and responsive CRVS. ESCAP has integrated these decisions into the 2024 review of the CRVS Decade and implementation of the Regional Action Framework. This attention to resilience and inclusivity of CRVS systems is closely aligned with our national priorities in Fiji, and I think they resonate strongly with governments in our region. It is now our job to make sure the strong role of CRVS systems for resilient and inclusive governance is acknowledged in national attention to improve efforts. An extension provides us with a unique opportunity to promote CRVS improvements in our region and raise these new issues related to CRVS with our high-level officials.
I don't know why you, thank you. We can hear you again.
Sorry.
Yes.
An extension provides us with a unique opportunity to promote CRVS improvements in our region and raise these new issues related to CRVS with our high-level officials, development partners, and donors in alignment with our goals for the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The recommendation to extend the decade will be presented to ministers at the third ministerial conference on CRVS in Asia and the Pacific to be held from the 24th to the 26th of June 2025. An essential support to justify the recommendation even further will be the findings from the 2024 review of the CRVS decade and implementation of the Regional Action Framework on CRVS in Asia and the Pacific. Insights from the 2024 review will also guide development partners as they can tailor their support to more effectively target the needs of each country in the region. During this session, I invite each and every one to reflect on how you have done as a country in improving the CRVS, in getting everyone into the picture. Let's think of what has been done and what more can be achieved during the extension of time. For all of us who will be involved in the completion of the 2024 review questionnaire, I encourage everyone to actively provide details in the questionnaire by the specified deadline of 15 September 2024 so that all the voices are heard. It is our responsibility to provide guidance for the work of the countries and the development partners. Thank you, and I wish you all the best with the questionnaire completion.
Thank you so much, Treta. And my apologies that you were somehow muted a few times. And also thank you to Neil, who's in the office with you. It's really lovely to see both of you, and really appreciate your leadership in this. And also, you know, as you mentioned, this review is really, really important, both for countries and for development partners, to make sure we continue the momentum on CRVS in the region and really make sure that we get towards our joint vision that was established back in 2014. So thank you so much, and really lovely to see you both. Our next speaker is Philip Settel. Probably most of you already know him, but he is a Director and Vice President of the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Improvement Program at Vital Strategies. And as most of you probably know, Vital Strategies are a very big and important partner in this region. They're doing amazing support in many countries, very technically strong, wonderful to work with, and we're really, really pleased with all of the support that they're giving to countries in Asia-Pacific. And we're very happy to have Philip here today for multiple reasons. But one of the reasons is that before he was with Vital Strategy, he was actually the Deputy Director of the Measurement, Learning and Evaluation Unit with the Global Health Division at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So he's very well pleased to talk with us about the importance of reviews for identifying area support. and monitoring. And I know that Philip is also very heavily engaged in Vital Strategy's own kind of monitoring of their activities and the amazing impact they're having at the country level. Philip also holds a PhD in medical anthropology from Boston University, so we are in very good company. And I will give the floor to you, Philip. To you.
Tanya, thanks so much for the introduction. I'll just quickly share my screen for my slides. And what I would like to do today is to actually talk about, yes, the role of assessment, but also the gaps that we have in between those assessments and what we can do to fill those gaps and why it's important to do so. So, Madam Administrator General and ESCAP and regional colleagues, today I want to talk about leading with purpose, reflections on measurement and monitoring of CRVS systems. The purpose of this presentation is to reflect a bit on and propose an emerging approach to the measurement and monitoring of CRVS system performance and data quality on a routine basis. I'll talk about what current approaches have been, look behind a little bit and look around us at what currently exists, look at what I call a measurement model and the need for standardization and harmonization, and then propose a purpose-driven approach and some parting thoughts. And I'm going to do it all in 15 minutes. So previously, in CRVS land, we had two assessments that were widely used from the Health Metrics Network and from the WHO and the University of Queensland. Those have broadly gone out of use, and I don't want to spend much time discussing them, but while diagnostic in a sense, those assessments didn't give good pointers to actions that can be taken to improve. They didn't provide a lot of guidance to specific operationalizable best practice interventions at the country level to address any shortcomings or shortfalls in performance identified through the assessment procedure. I'm going to return to this theme of actionability of CRVS measurement later because it became a theme very quickly under the Data for Health initiative. I should call out that we also had ANACOD at the time, since about 2010, for use of cause of death quality data analysis and to output key indicators from cause of death data. And of course, we have had household censuses and surveys, including efforts like the mix and demographic and health surveys that focused on things like maternal mortality, birth certificate ownership among children, and so forth. More recently, under the Bloomberg Philanthropies Data for Health initiative, we've started to work on tools and resources that build an assessment phase into an improvement phase. So that there's an assessment, a diagnosis, and then resources to identify, plan, and resource what is recommended to come out of that. One example is work in legal and regulatory review of CRVS and ID systems. That resource offers a process for coming up with concrete recommendations for legal and regulatory reform. We have a systems improvement framework and technical guidance for strengthening vital statistics production, which also contains some recommended indicators and processes to develop key performance indicators. And then we also have in the Data for Health initiative a standard baseline assessment with annual updates that we share with the US CDC, another partner in Data for Health. And that results in things like supporting via the publication of annual vital statistics reports, which are based on UN principles and recommendations, and collection of repeated indicators of system performance that are based sort of on a maturity model, which is in turn based on some best practice milestones. So there are building blocks out there, but there's a need to go further and to routinely measure performance and data quality to allow a temporal picture to emerge on a time frame that is amenable to intervention and improvement of CRVS systems, and ideally maintain high levels of performance over the long term. Currently, in addition to the indicators discussed from the Data for Health resources, the SCORE assessment by the World Health Organization contains a significant chapter, the C chapter in SCORE, for counting every birth and death, or counting every vital event. I can't remember exactly which it is. There, of course, is the CRVS Decade, which we're here to celebrate and launch the Nline questionnaire for. The ANACOD system of WHO, again, for cause of death, that aspect of civil registration data. And there are also indicators from the Africa region as part of their API CRVS indicator and data collection system. Plus, of course, we remain with censuses and household surveys, as was mentioned previously. But given all this measurement, we're still left in a bit of a muddle. The situation really is one in which there are several sources of indicators, but even quite basic ones are not consistently defined and measured. Like completeness, definition, even basic indicators like completeness, definitions can easily vary, limiting comparability and the chance to harmonize across platforms. So for example, take death registration completeness. Some may ask for the previous 12 months. Some may ask for a calendar year. Some may ask for a most recent year in which complete data are available. Measures of ill-defined versus garbage codes versus causes lacking public health utility may make comparability of cause of death data and the quality of cause of death data difficult to compare and contrast and understand between data sources within countries and across countries. So from our vantage point and with regard to many, certainly not all low and middle income countries that we work with under the initiative, and I think there's probably quite a great deal of variation in the ESCAP region with regard to this statement, but certainly there are countries that lack routine performance and data quality monitoring information that is collected and used by the owners of the CRVS system. And I'll get into more about the problematic nature of this gap, as I'm calling it, or this measurement model, and how we might resolve it. It's, of course, even more problematic in CRVS systems that include multiple owners and stakeholders. So we have a situation with many countries working with whom we work that have limited routine monitoring of CRVS performance or the ability to set and monitor performance targets. No resources to aid the establishment or improvement of monitoring of CRVS system performance and the quality of data, such as standardized indicators. There are core indicators that are developed primarily for domestic use that can vary quite a lot across countries, even when, strictly speaking, it's not necessary that they be so. And basic indicators themselves can vary across global partners, placing an extra burden on those responsible for reporting and making it more challenging to do what the Administrator General was speaking about in terms of using assessment data to identify priorities for resourcing and action. So if I may take a few more minutes to bend your ears about some thoughts on a way forward. And I want to start by emphasizing that government ownership, coordination, and leadership for long-term sustainable impact is really the formula that we have found to work best in CRVS strengthening, with a balancing among operational feasibility, available resources, technical rigor, and coordination and collaboration necessary within the CRVS context. After all, who's in a better position to seek input and balance all of these factors than the government itself, who's both the producer and consumer of these important data? A word now within that process, though, about standardization, which has a number of benefits, which I've listed, some of which I've listed on the slide here. An additional benefit, though, of standardization, however, is that it saves time and resource and effort in terms of the design of CRVS performance monitoring systems, which is another topic that we'll get to shortly about how to make all this actionable and tractable. In addition, it offers, if not prompts, donors to harmonize and rationalize data collection requests, thereby hopefully reducing reporting burden that often falls on the same focal point shoulders in the same departments. So if we were to have these sorts of resources like standardized indicators, like a guidance document about how to go up setting up a country-owned and led performance monitoring and evaluation system for CRVS, how do we make that tractable and what might it look like? Well, one way to look at it is that there are three basic purposes for measuring performance and data quality in a CRVS system. One is for the learning and improvement of that system. One is for internal and external accountability. And one is, of course, to ensure the highest quality of vital statistics as possible in the long-term vision of universal completeness and inclusive and responsive CRVS systems. So the planned collection, analysis, and synthesis of this data, plus time devoted to reflection and developing insights from learning and improvement, and then a commitment made to implement changes necessary and act upon those improvements will lead to the long-term sustainable improvement of the CRVS system. So that's some sort of framing assumptions that I'd like to make about the remainder of my remarks. I believe one way we can begin to make all this tractable, how to bring it down to size, is to start not with what we might like to know out of the CRVS system, but what we need to know by assessing the data needs of performance and data quality indicator users. So we should start with this assessment one by one, guided by a few questions. What decision or policy needs to be made? What CRVS data-related questions need to be answered to help them make that decision? What format, frequency, level of disaggregation, etc. are required? What subsystem are we measuring in the performance measurement planning process? And based on that exercise, repeated with each group of data users at each level of the system, to develop a monitoring plan that maps necessary business processes to get from the data sources for the required indicators to each use case. One example of having done this was a project that I was affiliated with some years ago in sub-Saharan Africa and Tanzania. In it, we were generating demographic statistics and indicators out of a national sentinel system of health and demographic surveillance sites, which we're trying to poorly substitute for a functioning CRVS system. What we did in order to develop our performance indicators and the indicators that would be used by stakeholders was to go through each national program. We went through 6 of them, I believe, including the AIDS control program, the malaria control program, the Millennium Development Goals. So you can tell how long ago this was because it was still the Millennium Development Goals. And to identify which indicators were required in which programs, reporting requirements. So these ranged, as I mentioned, from HIV to malaria and so forth. And we provided indicator packages for the indicator in question to those users in the time and place when they were required to be made available. As it turns out, this Sentinel system produced estimates that were not far off the official estimates that came out later from other sources, and they were available sooner and in country. So I know I've spoken for quite a while, and I just want to leave with some parting thoughts. And that is that the assessment and routine reassessment of CRVS performance and data quality is really critical to long-term sustainable impact. That basic tools and guidance are lacking, even though we have some building blocks that we can work with, but this leaves countries to largely reinvent the wheel and leads to a bit of a measurement muddle, as I've discussed at the country level, and when trying to do cross-country comparisons of CRVS performance. One way forward would be the development of actionable user-oriented CRVS performance and monitoring systems. And we can draw here from lessons of the Gates Foundation in actionable measurement and the work of a well-known evaluation approach called utilization-focused evaluation. In this way, we can harmonize data collection internally and externally and meet the CRVS principles of collect once and use many times when it comes to data. And ultimately, we certainly hope to count everyone and leave no one behind. So thank you for your kind attention, and I'll pass back to Tanya.
Thank you so much, Philip. And it's really great to hear your approach to these things, and also when I hear you speak and hear about the details and the information that we are interested in looking at now, it's really clear that we've moved a very long way from when the CRVS Decade were initiated back in 2014, where we were not able to hold these conversations at all. And also looking at, back in 15, when we collected the baseline questionnaires from countries, many countries struggle to provide very, very basic information. We saw a huge improvement for the midterm review in 2020, but we're really hoping to see even further improvements now. And I think those improvements in just the data monitoring the systems is really clear from your presentation, and also means that we're in a completely different space now than we were 10 years ago. So that is really positive news that we have, we can move the conversation forward. And I just wanted to also highlight, that Vital Strategies and other partners have been super helpful in providing inputs to the questionnaire that we will be talking a bit more now, because my wonderful colleague, Soana Roth-Tay, or Roth as we normally call him, will be giving you an overview of the rationale and the timeline, the processes and support that are needed for completing the 2024 review questionnaire. Roth has worked with us as an associate statistician for a number of years now. We are very, very fortunate to have him on our team. And for those of you who are national focal points and will be involved in the questionnaire completion, you will hear a lot from Roth. So mark his name. In a few months, you will know it by heart, because he will be leading the support to countries for completing these questionnaires, and he'll tell you a little bit more about what that looks like. Before Roth joined us, he was working for Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Australia in Cambodia. He's a Cambodian national, which is also very nice to have someone from the region and very close by in our team. So over to you, Roth. Give them a good overview of what will happen over the next few months. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, and as well, thank you to Trata and Philip earlier for setting the scene, but also to sort of celebrate this questionnaire launch. So it's been a big undertaking, but this is not the first time we've done it. So we have wonderful knowledge and contribution from, of course, Tanya, our partners in the regions as well. Countries themselves, through the regional steering group, provided very, very good feedback into the design of the questionnaire. And I would like to also give a special thank to our former intern, Miss Alice Wolf, who was, crucial in designing, some of the R codes that we use to pre-fill the questionnaire, which would certainly help a lot of countries in completing the questionnaire moving forwards as well. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But first, I'd like to talk about the rationale as to why we're doing this review. As of course, most of you know, the main aim of the review is to see whether we've actually achieved our shared vision. And that shared vision is that by 2024, everyone in the region will benefit from universal and responsive CRVS system to facilitate the realization of their rights, support good governance, health, and development. In other words, have we gotten everyone in the picture? And as previously mentioned, this is not the first time we've done this review. Actually, we've done two reviews in the past already. The baseline, as some of you might have remembered, way back in 2016, was conducted to set the reference point for us to measure progress against. And we've done a midterm review in 2020. Where we looked at progress up until that point, and now we're doing it again as the 2024 updated review to see where countries are at in terms of realizing the shared vision as well as the goals and targets set under the regional action framework. So I talk a little bit about, the monitoring aspect, why we're doing this review, but also the review will feed into the assessment and the consideration at the ministerial conference, which will be held, the third ministerial conference, which will be held on the 24th to 26th of June 2025. For more information on that and the review, you may go to our getinthepicture.org website, which I'm sure will pop up in the chat at some point. And you will get definitely get more updated information on that as well. And at the third ministerial conference, the review will provide crucial information to ministers to decide on, whether we've achieved our progress, whether the progress is sufficient, and whether we're going to and what type of future direction we're going to go with on CRVS in the region. The review will also give very crucial information to development partners for them to tailor their support to countries in improving CRV system in the region as well. And it's very crucial that we have this information, because in the past, partners have used findings from the midterm review, to a certain degree in designing their support, and that's been quite helpful in harmonizing support and promoting a collective efforts to realizing the shared goal. And of course, data from the review not only allow us to measure our progress on the CRVS against our decade, but it also offers crucial data to fill data gaps, that we need to fill to measure progress against the 2030 agenda, against the Sustainable Development Goals under 2030 agenda as well. So it's important on that front as well. So what is the process then? So how are we going to carry out this review? So this Stats Cafe is essentially the launch of the questionnaire. Soon after, countries will be receiving questionnaires from us with associated documents and support, and then countries, particularly for those who have that have national focal points, the national focal points will work closely with relevant partners to collect information on a number of the questions that are included in the questionnaire, which were designed to analyze whether they where they are at in terms of realizing the goals and the targets. And then once countries have completed and returned the questionnaire, we will compile them as reports, and we will compile them and produce a synthesis or a regional review report, which will collate findings from the questionnaire, and also we will present the findings at the ministerial conference in 2025 as well. And then obviously, the ministerial conference will not only celebrate the end of the decade, but also look towards the future, towards what we plan on doing. And as our previous speaker, Ms. Treta, mentioned already, there was a proposal recommendation by the regional steering group to extend the decade until 2030, and that the findings from the review will fit into the decision at the ministerial conference on that. So what are included in the questionnaire, and I'll show you the questionnaire in a little bit to give more, to give a better picture. But essentially, these are the list of information or tabs in an Excel spreadsheet that each countries will receive. We have a guidance tab, definitions that are commonly used throughout the questionnaire, and we have the main key numeric tabs on birth registration, death, cause of death, vital statistics, implementation step, and we have added a new tab on action areas, which are not new in the sense that they were recommended under the regional action framework. So we're bringing more focus on that. And as you can see in some of the brackets, we've pre-filled to, where possible, some of the tabs so that it's easier for countries to complete the questionnaire as well. So how should the questionnaire be completed? So as I mentioned earlier, for countries with national focal point, they will be the center of attention. They will be the central coordinator, where they will work with other relevant actors at the national level to complete the questionnaire. For countries that have not assigned a national focal point, we will we will reach out to you as well, and we will provide more information, and we encourage countries, as stated in the regional action framework, to assign a national focal point if possible. And they will work closely with relevant ministries as well. And as stated here, development partners and ESCAP will be offering support, and I will talk about that in my next slide, to help country complete the questionnaire where possible, whether that be one-on-one session, whether it be webinars, or whether it be online resources where countries can go to seek support. And yeah, as mentioned previously as well, ESCAP will work closely with the national focal point on that, where there are national focal point. So on support, information, including question and answer document, will be uploaded onto our getinthepicture.org website. But if countries over the coming weeks have any questions or inquiries, they may do so by reaching out to the ESCAP Secretariat via the email below, and copying my email as well, and we'll make sure to get to those questions and inquiry as soon as possible. We will also plan to have online Q&A sessions throughout August and September, and a series of workshops at various sub-regional CRVS events to support countries on questionnaire completion. And the good news is that partners, a lot of partners, which is fantastic to see actually, will support national focal point, have offered their support to them in completing the questionnaires as well. So we're delighted that the partners have come together on this one. So just quickly on the timeline, and you can find more information on this on our Stats Cafe website. Just to recap, previously we've prepared the questionnaire, and we've piloted the questionnaires and incorporated the feedbacks already. So thank you to everyone who contributed to that. Right now in June, we are launching the questionnaires, and over the next month, the next 2 months, we will be in touch with countries, and they can come reaching out to us if they need supports as well. And during August, September, we will aim to work on workshops or one-on-one sessions to help countries complete the questionnaire. And the deadline for completing the questionnaire, I should mention earlier, is the 15th of September. So they have a good 3 months or so to complete the questionnaire. And then over the course of October to December until the end of the year, will be ESCAP working closely with countries to validate the data and produce a draft report, which will be ready for comments by the regional steering group in January or February. And we aim to have a final draft ready for our internal purposes for editorial and translation by early March. And we will present that and launch that report at the third ministerial conference on 24th to 26th of June 2025. So exciting time, a lot of work to do, but it's definitely worth it. I'm sure of that. Just finally, just one last point on what the regional report looks like. I mentioned it previously. It's to review the progress of implementing the regional action framework, but also it will serve as the basis for discussion on the future at the ministerial conference, the future of CRVS, and it will contain a section on progress towards the targets, where the countries have actually implemented the implementation step, which are, for those who don't know, which are crucial steps that countries should take in order to achieve the goals and targets. And also it will have recommendation for countries on how they can achieve the goals and some specific selected chapters on some key action areas or topics that we've agreed to highlight, such as resilience and inclusivity. Tanya, if I may take a couple of minutes just to show people the questionnaire, that will be, I think that will be helpful. I'll just take a few extra minutes and then we should be good to go if I can share my screen, right? So this is what the questionnaire looks like. So the first tab, you'll see country information, where we'll fill the name of the national focal point, if there is one. And then you have a couple of other information tab here, like guidance, definition, for example, some of the key definitions that we use throughout the questionnaire. And then here we have the key tabs. We have 6 tab, birth registration, death registration, and so on. So these are the information that we will fill, that we will ask country to fill out. You can see the midterm columns here. That's where we pre-fill for countries that answer the questionnaire in the answer the midterm questionnaire. We pre-fill the columns, the cells with data that provided to help them complete the 2024 questionnaire easier. And then we pre-fill the questionnaire with data from international database where applicable as well. It's the same with death registration, cause of death, vital statistics, and so on. So these will be what the countries have to fill when they receive the questionnaire, and hopefully once that's done, we'll have a very good picture of where countries are at, and hopefully we'll see whether countries are getting everyone in the picture or not. That's all from me. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have a lot of people in the chat, which is fantastic. And looking forward to being in touch with those who are working on the questionnaire in the next couple of weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rothan. That was very, very comprehensive, and I hope very useful for our participants as well. If I can take my key takeaways from your excellent presentation, I think national CRVS focal points are really key. In the countries where we have focal points, which I think is 53 countries or something, it's almost all of the countries, they will be receiving this questionnaire and they will have the role of completing it. So if you're not a national focal point, or if you and you would like to know who is a national focal point in your country, you can find the list of national focal points on our website. Of course, we know these things change. So if this name is longer in that role, or we need someone else, please let us know as quickly as possible so that we can make sure that this lands in the right inboxes. And yes, the questionnaire will be sent out over the next few days. So we're really excited that we've reached this very big milestone. I also just wanted to highlight the role of ESCAP and partners in validating the data, because looking back at our experiences with the baseline and midterm review, this was something that was quite time consuming and also, I think, a very good kind of exercise to go through. When we receive the questionnaires from countries, we will go through it. And if there's anything that looks a bit funny, or if there's something where we kind of know that there's data, but there wasn't anything submitted, or data that doesn't match up between different sheets in the file or whatever, we will go back with questions. And that happens for almost all countries, and it'll be a bit of back and forth. Because of that, I will also really strongly encourage you, if you have finalized the questionnaire, but you're still waiting for it to be kind of endorsed by other stakeholders in the country, you're very welcome to send us draft questionnaires so that we can start this review process. We would really welcome that, so that you don't end up getting something endorsed that we then end up, having questions to, and then you'll need to go through the whole process again. So we really would encourage countries to send us their drafts, and then we can kind of finalize them together, and also together with our wonderful development partners, because ESCAP doesn't have national offices. So therefore, we rely very heavily on great partners. And I see Jeff is here from SPC, and of course, Philip was here for Vital Strategies. And there's a lot of other great partners in countries that will be supporting you as well. So I don't want to take up a lot of time, but I have seen we've received a few questions in the chat box, which is fantastic. And if anyone else has questions, please put them in there as well. So the first question is from Russell from New Zealand. And he asked if we can confirm that if he disagrees with the pre-filled data, he can change it and update it. And I would let Roth respond to that question.
Thank you, Tanya, and very good question, Russell. The answer is yes. We have locked the cell, but you can certainly reach out to us and let us know if you find that some of the information that we pre-fill are incorrect. The reason why we lock the cell is one, to make sure that we remain consistent in terms of the data that we input in the questionnaire, so that when we look at the questionnaire throughout the whole region, we have, a sort of standard reference point and resources and so on. So the answer is yes, you can reach out to us for sure.
And if I could just add to that very good response from Roth, we're kind of hoping that there will be changes in some countries, right? Well, part of the reason is also because we know that there has been improvements of data at the country level. So if the data that you or another country submitted back in 2021, if you have or 2020, so if you have better data now, then we would very much appreciate to get updates to that. It's part of the reason to also do the pre-filling, so that you can kind of check what you submitted before. Also, because we know that the people who are national focal points now are very unlikely to be the national focal point almost 10 years ago, right? So staff change, people change. So it's important to see what has been submitted before. And if you're now thinking, oh my goodness, what did my country submit 5 years ago and 10 years ago? Actually, all the responses to the previous questionnaires are also available on the website. So you can have a sneak peek at what was submitted before and see if there's things there you already now know will definitely have improved by this stage. We saw huge improvements between the baseline and the midterm review in the data submitted by countries and the depth of the information available from countries. If we see as big as an improvement for this one here, we will be very excited, and we can really do a lot of great analysis and really showcase what is happening in the region. So hopefully that will be the case. Anyone else has any questions? And thank you for the question, Russell. That was an excellent question. Any other question? There was a question about statistics on stateless populations and the incorporation in civil registration systems. I provided some guidance already, because we've been doing we did a workshop with some fantastic partners some months ago on inclusive CRVS systems, focusing on stateless populations and other populations. So I hope you will find the guidance you were looking for in there. But anyone else who has any questions or comments? Okay. Otherwise, I'd just like to kind of highlight that we're really here for you over this. So if you need any support, please feel free to reach out to him. He's very nice and very approachable. And his job is really to help you guys. Yeah. So if you have any questions at any stage, please drop him a line. And I know he's very, very responsive. So you'll get a response very quickly. And we are here to help you to fill in these questionnaires. So we really encourage you to take advantage of that. Okay. Anyone else has any question? Very nice comment from one of our colleagues from another division. Thank you, Matthew. Excellent. Also from our Cambodian colleagues. Okay. Looking to see if there's any questions. I would say also again that we did a pilot of the questionnaires with a number of countries, Fiji again being one of the front runners here, and also a few other countries, Bangladesh, Philippines, and Malaysia. And they came with some really great inputs, and we have revised the questionnaire based on that. Actually, it has taken a long time to get to this stage with the questionnaire. It's been through multiple review rounds with our partners in the regional steering group. And it is not perfect, but it's definitely much better than it was a few months ago. And I do think it will provide us very, very useful information for us and for development partners as well as countries.
I should also mention that we have also tried to align our questionnaires with some common questionnaire that we know might go out to the same respondent, so that we reduce respondent burden as much as possible. So we hope that will help countries as well.
Yeah, and related to that, I think it is quite a comprehensive questionnaire. But the good news is that if we hadn't been tough, it would have been twice as big. So we have really tried to cut it down as much as possible, although we know it is still large. And of course, if there are questions that you cannot complete, please complete as much as you can. And we would much rather receive incomplete questionnaires than no questionnaires. So please feel free to do that if that is the situation in your context. Okay. Okay, well, if we don't have any more questions, you have another 10 seconds to put in questions or put your hand up if you have anything to say. Otherwise, I really look forward to, okay, I have Dr. Asif from Pakistan who has his hand up. So I will give the floor to you, Dr. Asif, if I can.
Thank you very much, and good morning to all the colleagues. So primarily, as we see during the discussions in this session, that primary focus is regarding the notifications of the vital events, particularly the births, deaths, long causes of deaths, to the registering entities, their registrations, and the ensuing documents. And the questionnaire focus on these aspects. It has been focused on these aspects and still have, and in this questionnaire that we are discussing, we are focusing on this aspect, and this works. But again, I'll give you an example, because there must be many countries, that includes my country as well. This information is primarily captured from health sector, be it fixed health facilities, or it may be community, through the community health workers. These notifications are captured, and these are communicated to the registering entities. But here, the standardized form on which the information is captured for the births, deaths, along with causes of deaths. That's a comprehensive set of information having many variables. But the information that is retrieved by the registering entity for the purpose of registrations and its ensuing documentation, it's very limited. And eventually the information that becomes part of the national database, that is also very limited because it is as regards to the uh, strengthening of the ID management function of the national database. That's not true. Actually, the wealth of information is there in the notification forms that remains behind at the health sector level. So I have the concern because when we say that a lot of information, majority of the information, if we talk about the SDGs, that we can have the information about the various targets, indicators, more than 80% from the vital events data, then the information I have noticed that it is with the health sector, and it is not in its entirety is communicated to the local government, because local government retrieves that information, being the registering entity, a certain variables, and the net and subsequently the national database again certain variables. So a very useful information that is of use to us and you as well remains behind. I think
Thank
so.
you.
We should focus on that aspect as well, and we should make our questionnaire responsive to this aspect. That information, which is actually very useful, that is taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stephen, and nice to have you here today. I think that you're right. There's a really important role of the health sector, and there's been a lot of work happening over the last 10 years to make these systems more speaking better to each other. And we actually have some questions in the questionnaire about the data and how it can be used by other government entities. So you're very much on point here. I would say just when we focus on the questionnaire itself, we are asking national focal points to reach out to other relevant stakeholders. And of course, the Ministry of Health would be one of those key stakeholders. Our experience with both the baseline and the midterm questionnaire was that the countries where we got the best responses were the ones where multiple stakeholders actually been sitting together and worked on the questionnaire together and made sure that their inputs were aligned. I think it is very few countries where one person would be able to do this without support from others. I'm not sure there would be any countries where that would be the case. So the close collaboration with the health sector is really key. How the systems are set up in countries and which data is transferred from which agency to the other. There are some questions about that in the questionnaire. There's also some recommendations on that. There was a lot of work done for the Ministerial Conference in 21 on the role of the health sector in civil registration and biostatistics systems as well. So thank you very much for that question from Pakistan. If we don't have any more questions, I just want to double check this chat. No, I think we do not have any more. I would like to say a huge thanks to our excellent speakers, and a special thanks to Roth for all of his hard work on this. And also a special thanks to all of our national focal points who will be receiving these questionnaires soon. We really look forward to working with you on this, and we can't wait to see the actual results. And thank you to me. Thank you, Jeff. Always kind. Okay, thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Tanya. Bye.
Thank you, Trata, Neil.